Hey, welcome to the Create Unknown, the home of Make Something Mean Something. I'm bathed in blood. My name is Kevin Lieber, and with me, as always, is Matthew Tabor.
I don't know if I've ever read a horror book before this.
Really? Not a
I don't
single
think I
one
have.
ever. That's crazy.
I don't think I have.
That's
And
deliberate. That means you've avoided them.
yeah, yeah, I can't remember if I've read another Stephen King book, which it's possible I have, but I was mentioning this to you before we started recording. It's actually odd to not know if you've read books, right? Like to encounter one and be like, maybe I read that 25 or 30 years ago, but
I
I
have
can't
that
prove
with
it.
movies. There are movies
Oh,
where I'm
yeah.
like, I've never seen this. I've always wanted to. And then I'll watch half of it until I'm
Mhm.
like, I think I've seen this before.
One of them in real life too. I can't remember if I've been to Scotland.
Okay. That's kind of weird.
it's, I can't remember if I did, it would have been for like a weekend, would have been like 3 days, so not super significant, but I cannot recall. And I think it's 50-50. And over the years, I've tried to like swing the needle to be more or less certain. Um, but I don't know. Is the right move at this point, if you really can't figure it out, is that a vote that no, you haven't?
Well, yeah, I kind of feel like if you can't remember it at all, then did it happen?
It if it did, do you just downgrade it to never having happened?
I think so. I think you downgrade it. Yeah, I don't think you upgrade it. I don't think you're rounding up in this case if you have no memory of it. I'm thinking you round down.
I have been, this pops into my head periodically since, you went to Scotland about a year ago.
Yep. Yep.
You have confirmed with witnesses been to Scotland. And that's
Yes.
the other thing is that anybody I would have seen or gone with, I haven't talked to in so many years. I can't even remember their names. So I can't check with anybody. I
Mhm.
can't, uh, it's not there. And so since that came up for you, I remember saying to you at the time, like, I can't remember if I've been there. And it periodically has come up in the year since, and I've made no progress at all.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I think that it's out. Then we're not counting it,
I've
even if you
and
have.
I've I've officially never been to Scotland.
Nope. No.
Um, the it's the same with the horror books. I was trying to come up with anything that would qualify because there are books with grim plots, and there are books with scary elements and even important big parts that aren't horror books. They're not
Mhm.
Stephen King books, and I can't name another one that I've confirmed read. So this was when you suggested this, I'm like, oh
Well,
God.
I can confirm that you're completely unfamiliar with Stephen King as an author because when I recommended that we do
Hmm.
Carrie for the podcast, you were like, there's no way I'm going to finish a Stephen King book in a few weeks to talk about on the
Yeah.
podcast. And I was like, oh, my friend, you don't know anything about Stephen King because he has written books of every and stories
Mhm.
of all lengths humanly imaginable and possible from short story collections to things
I knew about
like
the short stories. I knew
w-
that.
well, even things that have been adapted into really famous movies like Shawshank, which is not called the book is not called Shawshank, but it's just like 40,000 words, I'm pretty sure, that story. Stand
Yeah.
by Me, I'm pretty sure, is really
That was The
short.
Body. The Body was the name of that book. Yeah.
That's super short. And
Yeah.
Carrie, which is like 60,000 words or something like that. It's not long.
If that, yeah, it wasn't long. I did read his book on writing many years ago. And that was, did you read that at any point?
I've
It's
heard so
short.
much about it. Yeah, I should just read it.
It's really good. It's useful. I mean, he's certainly knowledgeable and fantastic with all of that. He's this will come up. I want to get this out of the way. He's just a detestable person in real life to me. I I severely dislike the being of Stephen King, but there are these all these redeeming elements to him. Like he's a massive and quite serious Red Sox fan. He's legit, and that's on brand with his background and the area he's been obsessed with forever. He's quite serious, and that's awesome. And so if I ever found myself in a broken elevator with Stephen King, I'm bringing up the socks and hoping that we never veer away from that, and we'll both have a really good time. Um, Anything else? Not great. Jen is in the chat, and she says Green Mile is really short, and that she liked thought On Writing was good. I remember quite specifically this one element in On Writing where he's telling a story about like playing outside as a kid, and he's in the woods. He's like 9 or something like that, and he has to go to the bathroom. And I remember the way he described it. He said, I wanted to shit like a cowboy. And and it was the funniest phrasing that puts you in like this stupid little kid's head. Uh, and he goes to the bathroom and then uses like poison oak leaves as toilet paper, and hilarity
Oh,
ensues.
oh.
This is the point of him telling the story. It's like
Yeah,
the
hilarity
poison
for the
ivy or
reader, not
whatever.
for him at
Yeah,
9.
but I
That
just,
sounds terrible.
it was so funny to me that I'm reading along and he's like, I wanted to shit like a cowboy. That was a brilliant phrase.
Mhm.
So I was happy to give Carrie a shot. How do you want to go about this? Because you're obligated to lead because you suggested this book. This is your problem.
This is my problem. Yeah. Well, I don't remember. I have been reading long books almost exclusively, which
Yeah.
I am not doing on purpose. It seems like that's just what I've been attracted to. It's like the books that I want to read all end up being like 700 plus pages.
You post them on Twitter and it's like holding up a cinder block with a
Oh,
nice cover. I'm like, Jesus, Kevin. What
yeah. They're just tomes. And I think I was having a conversation about this, and I was recommended to read Carrie as a palate cleanser. My brother had said that this is the only book that he ever read in one sitting. Which I was like,
Who
oh,
said this?
my brother.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I can see that
It's like
too.
that's the only book I ever read in one sitting. I sat down, I started it, and however many hours later, I
Mhm.
stood up again when it was done.
Yeah.
So he's like, "So you should definitely read that." So I did. So I bought it, and it's cheap. It's I don't remember what I paid for this, brand new, like $8 or something like that.
Yeah. And
It's a
it was
cheap
like
book.
8 to get the Kindle version. And
Uh-huh.
the one feature on the Kindle version that I like so much is that it gives you estimated time. And so it was like a 7-hour thing for me that I think I took to about six and a half, because I did commit to it. Like when I read something, I quite frequently, take time between chapters, or will, get a text on a page, and like, so it throws off that overall reading speed.
Mhm.
I didn't do a lot of that with this. My primary focus was was sticking to the book because it was a sticky book.
Yeah, so there's really a lot to say about the book, and then the adaptations and everything, but let's just certainly start with
Adaptations.
the book. So I got the book, I read it. I have a uh, somewhat complicated Stephen King relationship in that I love The Shining. The
Mhm.
Shining is one of my favorite books. It's one of the most entertaining books that I've ever read. Like I think I read that book in about 3 days, which for me is really, really fast because I'm not a fast reader. I don't skim. I don't like skip. I read every word one at a time very deliberately, and it takes me a while to read everything.
And I just looked, that's 160,000 words. So that's a big one. And when, the reason I consider, or I default to thinking Stephen King books are tomes is because of the ones that were really popular in plus or minus 1995 with the people who were my age, this beginning of teen years. Uh, the books that the kids were carrying around, it was all the ones like The Shining, and so they'd carry around textbooks and then this dictionary on top of it, which was, one of the longer Stephen King books. And so my mindset was always that, yeah, he wrote these in-depth, sweeping horror books that were all like 700-page paperbacks.
So it is insanely long, and The Stand is insanely long, and The
Yeah.
Stand is like widely considered his best book. And I have tried 3 times to read The Stand.
What has stopped
Deliberately
you?
3 times. I'm like, I'm going to read The Stand this time. And after like every single time, after about 300 pages, I'm just like, I just don't, I can't do it. I don't care. I don't want to
You
read. It's like 1200. So after 300, you're like,
oh,
oh,
okay.
900 left to go. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm throwing in the towel. No
Yeah.
more.
That's pretty deep to me to stop. But even I can see it's only 25%, but like 300 pages, it seems like you would check out at like 50,
The
you know?
problem is, well, my problem, this is 100% a me problem because people love this book,
Mhm.
is that it switches characters. So, uh, I actually don't want to say frequently because you actually you'll spend 75 pages, I think, with one character. That's really what it is that you spend so much time with a character and then you just drop them for a while. And that frustrates my whatever disorder I have.
Yeah.
I get frustrated that, like, at 300 pages in, I'm starting over with a brand new character. I'm like, "Wait, now I have to learn about, like, Steve Jones and what Steve Jones likes and, like, what his background was," and I'm fatigued at, like, learning characters. I wanna get on with the story, and that's not how The Stand works.
I can see it being a great fit for somebody who has this unending patience for like multiple deep stories in a big complex thing. If that's your thing, awesome.
It's incredible. Yeah.
If it's not your thing, it's a slog. And people do this with history books too, and that is what I put more time into, in the last 10 years. And some of them have kind of a narrative style, and others are just like mishmashed biographies. Like there'll be what isn't a detour because it's so significant. All of a sudden, it's like this should have been its own book, and it would have been okay to make it its own book. But somebody is just treating a subject in that arena. You can imagine there's value in being exhaustive, where it's like I'm going to treat every major personality in this battle with their own their own mini book, and that's great. That's great for uh, historical depth. But I mean, there's a reason I do most of them on audiobooks because that's okay an hour at a time. If I were to sit down with that book and try to read straight through it, it might be 30-35 hours of exhaustive, good information that the narrative structure of the whole thing is just not what I want to do.
Yeah, I just feel like in that book, for me, by the time I've gotten invested in, like, a few characters, I just wanna ride with them. Like, let's ride or die with, Larry and, whatever, and instead it's like, "Let me tell you about Penelope, who lives in Georgia," and I'm like, "F Penelope in Georgia," like, I don't care. Why, like, what about Larry in New York? So, but this, yeah, 100% a me problem.
Jen says that she'll quit a book. She's quit them at 70%, and she says IDGAF. You know what that means. She says she'll quit at 90%. If she wants to quit, she quits. What's the latest that you can remember quitting a book?
I quit a book recently that I was probably uh 60% through, and that seemed late to me. I was like,
Why'd you quit?
I could just I didn't care what happened. I didn't care what happened, and once I get it into my mind that I don't care, it's impossible for me to keep reading, because even if I get sucked into, like, a paragraph, then the next paragraph I start thinking, "I don't really care," and then that, like, loops in my brain, and I can't focus at that point. I can't, disassociate and lose myself into the book because I'm just thinking, "This is boring, and I don't care." So I
Yeah, there's a point of no return, isn't there? And I suppose that can happen. That can happen at any point. I'm sure some people have given up like before final chapters and just said, you know what? I'm happier remembering that I quit than knowing how this ends. Yeah, she says 2/3 of the way through book 3 in a trilogy. Wow.
that's
So
late in the game.
you got to blow it as an author to
Uh,
have somebody eject themselves at that point.
yeah. 1,500 pages into something.
Yeah. Well, Carrie is so short that if you make it past, well, there are no chapters that are explicit, and this is something. I guess that's a decent starting point. Is there are no chapters. They're broken up. They're marked essentially by interspersing other documents, which sounds boring, but it's not. What is the list? One of them is Carrie's sort of friend Sue's memoir about the incident. There's an academic, like, research paper series. There's a sort of news analysis series. Are there any others?
Yeah, there's like, well, maybe that's part of Sue's thing, but there's like interrogation, uh, questions from detectives or something as well.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
transcripts. There's transcripts of like
Oh, that's right. Like
interviews.
of
A
not
hearing. It
a
was a
hearing, not a
hearing.
trial. A hearing,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
the government takes an interest in what happened, and
Mhm.
that's not part of the story at all. Obviously, because it comes after the fact. You can only have a hearing about what has occurred, and the story is the real time. Um, but they function as chapter breakups. After one of those little bits, the next bit in the story is somebody new or a different scene or something like that.
Well, that was one of the first things I noticed that I thought was interesting about this book is that I felt like it was this is such a lame comparison, but I was like, this is like a TikTok in 1974 or whenever it was
Hmm.
written. Like
74,
the
yeah.
the way that it is written is just these tiny snippets, and so you get like a little snippet of this article or an excerpt from this book about telekinesis or
Mm.
whatever. And you're constantly kind of hopping around. There are no chapter breaks, but there are those like snippet sections. You're just constantly kind of hopping around this story, rather than it being told, like a typical like third person narrative that starts at the beginning and ends at the ending. I mean, the ending like
Yeah.
20, maybe 15 pages into the thing, that there's
Mhm.
this girl and a whole bunch of people died and they're trying to
Mhm.
figure out what happened.
Yes.
That's the ending.
You know everything about the plot of this book at the very beginning. And to do that and then still have a suspenseful story is masterful. And Stephen King, I mean, it's exceptional. They like imagine imagine like a magician telling you exactly, or an illusionist telling you all the time exactly what's going to happen. And then it's still awesome to watch because you want to know how it happens, or you can't believe it, something like that. I mean, people like David Copperfield made their careers doing exactly that, where it's like, I'm going to make the Statue of Liberty disappear. Okay, you
Mhm.
know what's going to happen in the next 60 seconds, but you have no idea how it's possible. No clue. And Stephen King tells you hundreds of people are dead. This town is wiped out. A hundred, 100 students, whatever. The school population is wiped out. Pretty early that Carrie is dead, just from the way they're talking in those epistolary breaks, as Jen points out. All of this, and even at the end, by the time you get to the end, you don't find out anything significant that wasn't told to you in like the first half hour of reading.
There's no plot twist. No.
No, no surprises, no like, oh, I guess, and that happened too. No, no, no. He told you straight up. And it's still interesting.
Yeah. So one of the things, uh, I after I read this, I read Song of Cali, which was Dan Simmons' first book. So I just thought it would be interesting. So this is Stephen King's first book. I don't think we mentioned that yet. This was the first book he had published, Carrie. Song of Cali was Dan Simmons' first book.
Yep.
So I just wanted to, see what his first book was like. Anyway, what's funny is that in Song of Cali, the main character refers to Stephen King as trash, as like gutter trash writing, that like, idiots read. I don't remember the exact phrase that he uses, but that is the sentiment that, dummies read that like tabloid journalism level of writing, basically. And so that is something that people, the big heavy readers, the real serious readers, think about Stephen King, that he is fast food. He's like
Yeah.
Taco Bell of
Right.
the literary world. The thing about Taco Bell, though,
That's awesome.
it's really good. I mean, it's delicious. Um, it will give you probably gastrointestinal distress. I don't know if Stephen King will do that for you, but maybe.
This reminds me to go to the deep lore. This is one of the first things, if not the first thing, that came from you that I thought was the funniest thing ever. And it was you, like this goes so many years back, but you made a comic where you described Taco Bell as diaper meat. This is like 15 plus years ago, right? Uh, but calling Taco Bell diaper meat was one of the funniest things I have ever heard in my life. That was one of the moments I fell in love with the Kev Lieb.
Diaper
It's
meat.
like,
Yeah, it is funny. It's funny.
I don't even know what that means.
No, no. It sounds disgusting and hilarious. Yeah, diaper meat, diaper meat. So anyway,
Taco Bell's awesome, though. There's a reason why it is what it is. And if you are the Taco Bell of literature, my God, wouldn't that be incredible?
well, that's the thing. It's like, yeah, this guy stinks and he's Taco Bell. And it's like, okay. And he's sold how many, like hundreds of millions of copies of his books because they are endlessly readable. Like
Yeah,
this book, I don't care what your reading level is, you can read this book,
that's
you
true.
know. And
Yeah,
I wanted to make a contrast with Redwall, because Redwall is a book for children that I think is much, much harder to read
it is harder to read.
than
Yeah.
Stephen King's book for adults.
Redwall is the Go-Gurt push pop of literature. But yeah, it's not as fluid. There are sentences that are harder to understand. The vocabulary is often harder in Redwall.
It's much harder in Redwall. Much
Uh,
harder, the
it's
vocabulary.
there are regionally specific things in Redwall too that are flora and fauna stuff that's unique to the British Isles, where you don't need that in Carrie, even though it's set in a really distinct place, a distinct part of the world that has its own unique characteristics. You still never have to look anything up at all. Nothing.
Nope. Nope.
Nothing. And that's hard to do. It's hard to make a book as accessible. It's hard to tell a story, a 60-second story to a friend. It's hard to do that and have that be 100% accessible and not have to explain any context, any elements, any words. It's virtually impossible.
Yeah, you just get it. You just get it. And his prose isn't going to win any literary awards, but it should win like the digestibility award
Yeah.
because every sentence just is like the smoothest surface possibly imaginable when it comes to writing. You just glide right through the friggin' reading of this. It's
Did you feel
insane.
that way with the other Stephen King books you've read?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I felt that
Especially
way
The
with On
Shining.
Writing.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because writing books, I mean, I stopped reading that kind of thing so long ago, in part because it's not fluid. It's like a really obnoxious cookbook most of the time. I hate it, and I'm becoming. I don't know the right word. I have like this painful minor obsession with writing videos on YouTube now. Uh, it's sort of like a cut in your mouth or on your tongue that you can't help but like piss around with all day long, even though it doesn't feel good. But every 5 seconds, you're like playing with this minor irritation in your mouth. That's what these videos are like, and I send you the good ones. I forget the guy who I looked at the other day, and I'm like, oh, I like this. Um, but for the one I send you, I've watched 50 that just irritate me. They're so bad. And the two books that I did not feel that way about were Stephen King's On Writing, and then Orson Scott Card did one about. He did several about writing, and I read a
Yeah.
couple of those, and they were nice to read. You know,
Mhm.
they were okay. I enjoyed those, but that fluidity is incredibly tough to do, and he's certainly. I mean, he was masterful in 1974 with that. That was pretty early on for him. Really quick, I want to hit on the chat. Um, El Said, El Said, El Said. I don't want to get it wrong. I'm going to call him Al. But when we were talking about, giving away the plot at the beginning, this it makes me think of Dune, where we're told immediately this character is going to betray the good ones. And that's a big book, and there are several books in it, and really early on how much of that's going to happen. Uh, that's hard to do, and I think that people don't realize how okay it is to do that. You know, when I read stuff, this is amateurs. I like I love hate these people on Twitter too. The ones who style themselves as writers, but they're just boners tweeting. They have these crazy complex uh, like machinations with their plots, and the truth is like you could just say it in chapter one and then write a good story about it. like you don't have to invent this puzzle. Um, and Jen says there's a knee-jerk reaction from a certain kind of person who assumes that anything popular must be trash. And It is true a lot, but it's not all true. Uh, and yeah, I think we've all seen that oh, this music sucks because it's incredibly popular. This book must be, you know, werewolf werewolf porn.
Milkmaid, the milkmaid,
Milkmaid, yeah. Yeah.
the Minotaur.
Yeah, it must be like that if it sold a million copies. And yeah, that's true. But you know what? Some other stuff that's just a good story sells a lot too.
Yeah, yeah. So I do want to talk a little bit about this story. There will be spoilers. So if for some reason you don't, but it's hard to spoil a story that spoils itself right away.
Yes,
So I don't feel bad about that.
Steve spoiled the story, not us.
Steve. Yeah. Steve, Mr. King. So the premise of it, the okay, there are like two things that I find really important about this story. One is that the premise is so simple and
Mhm.
relatable, where it's like a girl is bullied and is pushed beyond the limit and gets revenge, right?
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
And I'm going to throw a tiny little piece on that. I think that it's relatable to be the bully as well, where the
Oh, okay,
I mean,
yeah.
in the end, not like the prom scene that virtually everybody with any cultural literacy knows from the movie anyway, the popularity of the movie and all of that. That's a big one. That's pretty crazy. The just kind of picking on the girl stuff that is the day in day out of it. I think on some level most people have done that.
I've been on
Not
both sides.
they've been on
I
both
would take
sides.
bet both sides. Everyone's
Yeah,
been picked on, and everyone probably picked on somebody else
to some
to
degree.
some degree.
Yeah, it's totally relatable both ways, which is kind of masterful too.
It's crazy to find a scenario that basically everyone can relate to.
Yeah.
The other thing, and I actually think this is my one hot take about Carrie, okay?
Okay.
So I don't think it's that hot. I think it's just true.
Oh, the
Uh,
true ones are the hottest.
uh,
Nobody ever
I've
got nobody ever got mad about
uh, a,
about the fake stuff.
a fake take. Um, my hot take for Carrie is that the blood dumping on Carrie as she's homecoming queen is such a good idea that it carried the entire Carrie, no pun intended. It has immortalized the whole thing because of that one image. I think that one image, the blood dumping on her
Yeah.
in the prom is such a good idea. It's hard for me to I really want to emphasize this. It is such an insanely good idea
Mhm.
that that's why this is famous. This is why Stephen King is famous. This is why it's one image. He came up
That's
with
enough to be iconic.
one iconic, legendary, like incredible idea
Mhm.
that it made the book what it is. It made the movie what it is. Like forget the bullying, like all of that stuff is fine.
Yeah.
There's probably been a million books about bullying girls and someone getting mad and getting revenge. And I'm sure that's
Well,
that's not the craziest idea ever.
there
The
are
f-
now.
the bucket of blood
Yeah.
on the homecoming queen. That is the killer app of
Yeah.
Carrie. It's
It, it
amazing.
it is. It is. And I don't think that there's anything that could be adjusted or tweaked in in that image and the scene around it that could improve. I mean that's
No.
perfection.
Yes, it's perfection. Yeah, that's what I think. I think that image
Mhm.
is as perfect an image that you could ever create in
Yeah.
fiction.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Again, no pun intended.
Oh, bazinga. Well, you got that one in there.
Well, we
Yeah.
do have to talk about periods.
Oh, yes. Yes. Uh, yeah, it's a defining image with clarity and simplicity, but there's so much that goes into it too. It's just a fantastic representation of everything that happens in this book and culmination of everything that happens. Uh, yeah, no, that's certainly going to kick off a career. I mean, he certainly delivered on it time and time again after that, with great books and whatever. There have been a lot of people who have done kind of near perfect books, and then not so much after that. Um,
That's true.
one that was on my mind, it was in a bag of books my brother dropped off for me to look through. S.E. Hinton's The Outsiders. Now,
Mm.
S.E. Hinton was like 16, 17 years old when she wrote that. Uh, she wrote it as a high schooler. They ended up writing a genre defining book. I don't know. Did you read it in school? Did you have to?
It's one of the few books I really liked in
It's
school.
a
Yes, I
great story. It's
really
done
liked The
well.
Outsiders, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Stay
good.
stay gold, pony boy.
And how many books do you see a catchphrase from, well, not catchphrase, but like a line that everybody knows what it means, and that still exists. Uh, she did write a bunch of books that were successful after that. Rumblefish did well and Tex did well, but not like The Outsiders. And she certainly didn't have, it wasn't her fourth book or fifth book like Carrie was for Stephen King, because she was a fetus. Um, but she really, like, in terms of the popular reception and all that stuff, people would say that she probably peaked at the get go with that. Um, what is oh, this is killing me, the crazy example, which we also had to read in school, um, where uh, Scout is the girl, and
To
Boo
Kill a
Radley, To
Mockingbird?
Kill a Mockingbird. That's right.
Yes, Kill a Mockingbird.
Um,
Atticus
I don't
Finch.
right. The I don't know why that escaped, uh, but you know, she didn't. she didn't
Harper
have the
Lee.
same. Harper Lee didn't have the same career that Stephen King did.
I
And when
think
she
she went a
did,
little cuckoo bananas, didn't she, after she wrote To Kill a Mockingbird? Am I remembering that wrong?
I don't recall what the exact progression was. I know she had a friendship with Truman Capote, which is treated really well in the film Capote, which it was just a cool treatment of the whole thing. Um, but I think it was Go Tell a Watchman was her follow up. I don't know if you remember this, but not that long ago, which could be 10 or 15 years at this point. It's like a blur on this. But she put out another book. And this was going to be the I mean, how do you follow a classic, 50 years, 60 years later, whatever? Um, it was an epic thing. It was like if there was like a newer testament of the Bible. There was that much fanfare about this. And it got ripped. It got panned. Some people liked it, but it was a bit of a dud. Bit of a dud. More of a dud, to put this in context for um for the Zoomers, more of a dud than the prequels and sequels were to hardcore Star Wars fans. More of a letdown than those were to, the literary crowd. But Harper Lee wrote that book too really early. She was so young when To Kill a Mockingbird came out. So you can get it right and do a great job, and then, you know, what happens? What happens? Well, Stephen King got it right managed perfection, and then kept pumping out bangers.
Yeah, well, yeah, no one is as prolific as him, and he's had duds too, but, when you do
Yeah.
67, whatever, however 70 books is, and you have 10 that are
That are
legendary, that's c crazy.
household names.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. So yeah, so that was one of the main things I thought of. I was like, setting the stage, again, literally for this girl to become homecoming queen, so this is
Yeah.
the last place she wants to be in front of the entire class when, she just is so afraid of everyone and has been picked on her whole life. Now she's up on stage with a crown on her head
A
and then
literal
gets
spotlight.
a literal spotlight
Yep.
with this, like, kind of quarterback, head of the class,
Yeah.
hunky
The
guy on her
popular guy, and
arm,
he's
popular
nice. He's
guy.
a good guy.
He is a
He's
good guy.
truly a good guy.
Yeah. And then the blood and then, the freak out. The it's just incredible, that idea. So I feel like as though that it could have been an instance where it's like, I have this ending idea in mind that's so freaking good. Can build the rest of the story around it, and it's going to be great. I don't know if that was the progression for him or not, but that's how I see it. And the entire uh, arc of it is that it begins with Carrie, who's 16 years old. She gets her first period, which is very late. Um,
Yeah.
Obviously, 16 is very late to get your first period. She thinks she's dying. She's just, bleeding everywhere in the shower at school. And she's really distraught and worried about her health because she doesn't know what's happening to her body. And then, of course, the other girls who are in the locker room start making fun of her for getting her period, for freaking out about it, just for being a weirdo. They, are throwing sanitary napkins and stuff and yelling at her and just teasing her. And that's
S-
really how it begins.
The uh, the vulgarity, and they did this in the movie too. They used the exact line in the movie. The coarseness of the girls screaming at her, plug it
Plug it
up,
up.
is just awful when you when you're reading it. I mean, I can't think of anything that would make you feel worse in that scenario. Virtually any insult that would be wittier uh, would not would not hit as hard. The crudeness of Plug It Up is horrible, and they do, it cuts right, on the face of the girl screaming this in the movie. I was glad that they did that, and that actually set the expectation for me that the movie was going to be take the best parts of the book and be really good. So once you get through the horrible pornographic aspect of the beginning of this film, which when it's introduced, it's like 2 minutes of, you know, I'm sure everybody was 18 plus uh, filming the scene, but the scene is high school girls in the locker room and shower. And they spend a really long time giving you the lay of the land in that locker room.
The lay of the land. Yes, it is a full frontal, and it's just the credits. It's just the opening credits.
Yeah,
Like,
it's just
do do
music and
do.
high
Here's
school
this.
girls
Here's who made
nude.
this movie, and then it's, yeah, just
God,
full frontal, supposed 16-year-olds. That's how it starts. But yeah, in the book, then you also the other critical element is her mother, who is a fanatical uh, Bible thumper, and she uses her faith to really abuse Carrie, not allow her to grow up at all like a normal girl, not allow her to fit in. Um, Literally locks her into a closet to say her prayers for indeterminate periods of time. It's not your average sort of strict household. It goes beyond that to
right.
the point of emotional and physical abuse. and almost, I would say, torture. Well, and
Yeah,
actually attempted murder, in fact, of her as well. Like, the
right.
moms literally tried to kill her when she was 3 years old. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And so this happens, you see this pretty quick in the movie as well, that she's got this. It's like the Chokey in Matilda. I don't know if you ever, uh, saw those movies or whatever with that was like the punishment closet, right? The Chokey.
Oh.
Um, which, yeah, I mean, the concept of the punishment closet, whether it's prayer or just misery, pops up in a lot of good books and movies. Uh, but this was the moment where I thought, you get the feeling that the person making the movie didn't fully understand the book. And early in the movie, the mother is who Piper Laurie was the mom. Um, Piper Laurie goes to a woman's house. Turns out to be Sue's house. Sue is Carrie's semi friend, the closest thing to a friend that Carrie has.
Her sympathizer.
Her sympathizer. Yeah. And this seems like a really mild distinction, but the mom is cheerfully evangelical. She goes to the house and is trying to spread the word of the Lord, etc. That to me is a misunderstanding of kind of everything, because that's not what the mom did in the book. And it is
No.
much more terrifying to have a quietly contained private fanatic of any kind than it is to have somebody out in the community and do all this. So I thought, oh, they blew it by making her seem like a door to door,
Like a
you know,
Jehovah's Witness or something. Yeah,
yeah,
it was really, I get that this was like, "Here's the scene where we're gonna explain that the mother is a religious fanatic," and I'm like, "This is not her character, though. She is,
no,
like, hiding. She hates, she loathes
she disapproves
of
everyone.
everybody,
Yeah,
and everything in society, all of it.
right.
She's not going door to door and walking into Sue Snell's house to talk about the Bible, ever."
No, no, and there's some value in that scene. Like it's not the absolute worst, but it's wrong, right?
It's
It's
a
wrong for
shortcut
the
to her
story.
character, but
Yeah, and so I thought, oh, I kind of wish they hadn't done that, and then kept watching, and it was the tip of the iceberg on ruining a good thing. Uh, but that's a really distinct difference that is captured perfectly, um, in the book, and straight ruined in the film. But thinking about why the mom is such a problem, on the surface, it's easy and cheap to think incredibly strict, does what constitutes abuse, that's a bad mom. Well, that's true. But really dissecting the detail of what made that a really difficult situation, I thought was done exceptionally well because it wasn't overkill. There was a lot of it, partially because, or mostly because, the mom's entire life, outside of the job she does, she's a works at a factory, or she's a seamstress of some sort, if I remember, uh, is centered around her fear of and obedience to God. So of course there's going to be a lot of it when that's uh, every minute of your life outside the 9 to 5, but it still isn't overkill. He talks about it with an ever presence that isn't repetitive, oddly.
mhm.
um that I'll I'll stop there for now.
Okay, because what I wanna say is that the important scene in the book that, like, really illustrates how well, the mom's relationship to how she sees everybody outside her home is not in the movie at all. And that scene involves the neighbor's daughter. So the neighbor's daughter is sunbathing in her yard in a bikini, and the mom has Carrie's mom has a huge problem with this girl just sunbathing in a bikini. That's completely lewd and a sin, to the point where, okay, it's not just she's like, oh, I disagree with that. I have a problem with this behavior. No, no, no. Carrie interacts with the daughter who's sunbathing, and the Margaret, the mother, is so upset at 3-year old. Okay, Carrie is 3 years old at this time. At 3-year old Carrie, just really talking, like looking at, like observing, seeing this teenage girl in her bathing suit, that she tries to murder Carrie over it. Like
Yes.
this is the big okay, the mom isn't just a staunch conservative and that's evil. It's like, no, the mom is insane and tried to murder her toddler for talking to the teenage girl next door. Like she tried to like murder her with scissors or something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is one. If we're going to get into criticisms of the movie, which I too had a lot of criticisms of the movie. Um, one of the I think perhaps the biggest misstep of the movie would be the underplaying of the mother's violence and insanity towards Carrie, and just how unsafe Carrie was in that house and
Yeah.
tormented she was in that house. It is not really portrayed well in the movie.
No, no, it's not. And it builds up gradually in the book where it's not a great it's not a great life for the girl. You know that at the beginning. And then the more you read and the more detail you get, you actually realize this is worse than I thought. This is really bad. And in parallel to that is this scene with she's 3 and this whole thing kicks off with her mom after the girl in the bathing suit. She has stones rain down on the house. And that is incredibly important because you know that because she's 3, she doesn't have a solid sense of what she's doing. But you know there's this dormant, latent something ability that has the capacity to be terrible,
Be
cause
really
terrible
destructive.
damage, be
Yeah.
really destructive.
So just to clarify, 3-year-old Carrie defended herself against her mom murdering her by using her psychic powers to bring down like hail and rocks or something on the house and and really damage the house.
Yeah. And
That
it's
saved her
important to
life.
know that as all of this bad stuff is happening to the girl, to the character throughout the book, and it's getting worse. There are some bright spots, but you know in advance what the culmination is. Well, you know that that's going to activate this ability that is potentially catastrophic in terms of destruction. You know that's possible, and in the movie, there's none of that at all.
None of
There's
it. No,
zero. It's such a
none.
strange thing, and like when you watch Star Wars, very early on that Luke Skywalker has some potential. He has some potential abilities that he doesn't understand. He can't control them. He doesn't even know they exist. One thing the prequels did really well is the idea that he was this incredible pod racer as a young boy. I don't know if you saw the prequels.
When they first came out, yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, this 5-year-old, 6-year-old has these seemingly inhuman instincts. Amazing. And some people do, like some people uh, drive and shoot and, kick and do all this stuff with like, they shouldn't be that good at it, but they are. right? And that's what makes it interesting, is to then have the character recognize that, find out about it, begin to understand and harness it. Um, that's cool. That does not happen in the movie. It's great. It's step by step in the book in a way that's not boring or prescriptive. It's sort of drip drop to you in the sort of way that the girl herself would become acquainted with the ability, right? Like you get bits of information as it seems like the girl discovering her power would get. That's cool. In the movie, it's like, no, she just thinks she has like psychic powers of some kind, reads a book about it. And then when there's a really good moment to use it, she goes bananas.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have been difficult. It wouldn't have been expensive. It wouldn't have been time consuming to foreshadow that stuff in the movie. They just didn't. Just did. Who made this movie?
Brian De Palma, who's a really great director. And I don't know if it was his first movie or what the issue was. There are some cool shots. There are some really bad shots. It's a mixed bag, I think. The Carrie movies are really mixed bag. Some of it I think is really well done, and some of it is so bad. But yeah, eliminating that foreshadowing or the precedent being set that when Carrie is under severe distress, she could wreck things.
Yeah.
uh, Kind of important for the climax of that film,
Yeah.
and removing that really undercuts the effectiveness of that moment. It really
And
does.
having, all the stuff you described with the stones in her mom, it's really important that she does that to protect herself. That is the
Yes.
extent of how she uses these powers. There's a moment where a boy makes fun of her, and this was one of the things I marked on Readwise. After she's walking home after the period problem, this little kid is riding a bike, and he says, "Hey, old fart face, old praying Carrie," and she looks at him. She's enraged inside instantly, and the bike falls over, and the kid gets hurt. Well, that's in the movie. That happens. But that's the first time she has used like been aggressive with this power. It's an important transition to use your powers for good to protect yourself, and then you play just for a second with this low stakes, other than the skin knee, deploying it in an aggressive way. That tells you, okay, if Carrie takes a heel turn like this and really means it, this could be crazy. The whole film is cheated out of that. And I looked up really quickly the genesis of De Palma with this. And this should enrage you. There should be, I hope there's a child riding by your house on a bike right now. And even though the bike has training wheels, you're going to flip this child. That's how you're going to feel. He says, I read the book. It was suggested to me by a writer friend of mine. A writer friend of his, Stephen King, had written it. I guess this was almost 2 years ago. This is 1975. I liked it a lot and proceeded to call my agent to find out who owned it. I found out that nobody had bought it yet. So he arranges, makes the calls and whatever, and like gets this movie off the ground. My point is that he read the book in full, understood the book, liked the book, and he himself wanted to make this into a film. You'd you'd think you'd think that it wouldn't have so many serious missteps with the story. I assumed before reading this little bit that it was that, it got caught up in the studio system and the end result has little to do with the book and misses the big parts, and it just got caught up in all of it. No, no. And he had a decent budget too. It says 1.6 million and rose to 1.8, which isn't a lot, but that film didn't really require 10 million.
Mhm. Yeah. And at that
Yeah, he
time,
says
budgets
certain
were much
scenes were
lower.
omitted due to financial limitations, and I do understand that. You can make some compromises there with the realities of making a film, but you can't tell me that that scenes with the mom and Carrie in their house was going to cost a lot.
Yeah, there could have been some sort of creative way. So the rocks scene. So I watched
Mhm.
you watched the original movie that is well regarded. It has a 7.6 or something on IMDb. People like that movie.
4.7 out of 5 on Amazon.
Wow, that's really high. Um,
Yep.
so yes, people like this movie. I watched 2 more adaptations of Carrie, like straight adaptations of Carrie. One was in 2013, I think, with Julianne Moore as
Uh-huh.
Margaret White. Another one was in 1999? No, maybe early 2000,
2002.
2002.
Yeah.
2002, that was a TV made for TV movie that was actually a pilot for a series in which, and I don't think I told you this yet. This was going to be my surprise on the podcast. The series, if it were to be picked up, which it was not, for really good reason, because it is atrocious. And what I wanted to say is that they have the
Mhm.
rocks pelting the house in the worst CG you've ever seen in your entire life. I mean,
Really?
horrendously bad CG. 2002, but it looks like worse than like PlayStation 1 graphics.
So
Um,
I've pulled this up and what's her name? She must have been Carrie. She's one of she's an actress I love seeing in the things that like when I see her in something, it's an automatic watch to me.
the 2002 Carrie?
Uh,
No way. It's nobody's in that made for TV movie. It's
are you
Zilch's.
sure?
Dude, yes. One of the friggin' hilarious things is the girl that they got to play Carrie for that is 29 years old. The actress was 29. The guy that they got to play Tommy was 27. I mean,
Yeah, but that was the time too. I mean, 90210 had blazed the way for 50 somethings to be teens. You know,
uh,
um,
she has
I pulled this
bags
up.
under her eyes.
I pulled up this scene as you're talking about it to see the CG. Um, it says Carrie 2002 Reign of Stones clip.
Ugh,
Oh yeah, this is really
atrocious.
abysmal.
It's worse than just saying it's bad. It's worse than that.
Do you think it would have looked okay on like a CRT TV? Do you think part of the problem is being able to see the detail of the bad CG? I
Maybe a little bit. But the thing that I wanted to say that was the information I was withholding is that the plan for the series was that Carrie and Sue Snell like go on adventures to help other girls with telekinesis. That was the
Oh
idea.
no.
Yeah. So Carrie murders hundreds of people, wipes out an entire town, and then Sue Snell like throws her in her car and they like drive to Florida. And then I guess the rest of the run of the series was supposed to be them like Scully and moldering around like some sort of X-Files buddy cop scenario, like
Oh,
helping telekinetic girls. It's like, what? What
that's
what about the mass murder?
uh,
We're gonna resolve that.
I
No?
can't
Okay.
believe how strange that is. It would never I don't know how did you read about how this like came to be? Because I bet that's way better than the movie would ever be or the series would ever be.
That was the extent of what I learned about it. No, no, I don't know how it came to be.
Yeah, how that got pitched
It's
and
such a bad
eventually
idea,
greenlit,
it's insane.
that's awesome. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, yeah. So I watched all of it. I watched both of the adaptations and the sequel, which is called Rage, Carrie 2, and that was made in 1999 and, has, like, a bizarrely kind of star-studded C-list celebrity lineup, including, Brad from Home Improvement
Oh, yeah?
and yeah, Mina Suvari, who was
Uh-huh.
really she
She
was
was
in
something back then.
American Beauty at the time, and then,
Yep.
Road Trip or whatever, some American Pie. Maybe she was in one of those, like, gross out teen movies. Um, and, that is the worst of the bunch. The Rage 2 Carrie Rage Carrie 2, the Carrie sequel, which makes no sense, uh, is truly awful. But I enjoyed watching all of this. Like, I watched every second. I didn't skip through anything. I actually looked forward to, like, what is this going to be like? Because it was just fascinating to read the book and then watch essentially 3 adaptations of the same story, none of which I think did it very well. Like, which it's not a long story. Like, it's not like trying to adapt Lord of the Rings or something. It's like, this is a pretty simple, straight through story, and, no one's gotten it right yet, but there is another adaptation coming out this year in October on Amazon from the guy who made Haunting on Hill House and, Haunting of Bly Manor and Mass Midnight Mass, all of those, horror, like, anthology on
Mm,
Netflix. I can't remember that guy's name.
yeah. I I don't know. I don't I there's that morbid curiosity to see how it's gonna turn out, but you said it's a series, and I thought this, I said this to you, as I was finishing reading or I finished the movie. I thought, "Oh, this really could have worked as a series," because then you have time to hit all the details that the movie left out. You have time to develop the intricacies of, why the mom, like who she is and who she isn't, which the omissions are the oddly terrifying part of her personality. The rigidity of it seems like that's the problem, but there's more to the rigidity, which is, what happens when you don't waver out into the normalcy that most people do. You have to show the things that a person doesn't do to really make that rigidity matter. The book was perfect with this. The movie was absent with this. The woman I was trying to think of was Marin Ireland, and she was in Sneaky Pete. I don't know if you ever watched that on Amazon. Um, she's just a she's got a really unique look. Uh, she's fantastic as an actress, and it's not her. I thought it was a very young version of her in this beginning clip of the Stones thing. No, she doesn't seem to have been in Carrie at all. So I just invented that. I just made the series better by inserting an actress I love.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I one of the details, and I said this to you as I read it. Um, I'm looking at the few quotes that I pulled out of the book. Uh, one thing that Stephen King does really well is injecting super plain, super plain, mildly shocking phrasing into an otherwise normal sentence. This is that shit like a cowboy, right? But where fun childhood story, whatever, and then this just very funny thing. And early on, She hardly would have admitted the pleasure the act gave her, and she certainly would have denied that she regarded Carrie as a fat, whiny bag of lard. That's exceptional to have this detailed insight into the character, and then you end with fat, whiny bag of lard.
Mhm.
Something about the movie when anybody listening watches or rewatches, so they should do all the things that we do.
I agree.
Is the the most physically disastrous person in this film is Edie McClurg. Edie McClurg. Now she came up recently, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. Oh,
Totally
uh,
unrelated to Carrie.
yeah, totally unrelated to Carrie.
Do you remember what it was?
I think I was making fun of somebody and I said they looked like Edie McClurg, and I don't remember who it was.
Yeah. Well, you know, you almost certainly don't know who that person is by name, but when you see her face, she's been in a lot of stuff as an adult. She's got a really recognizable uh,
Ferris
persona.
Bueller's Day Off. She was the secretary to the principal. She was
She's
Mrs. Poole, the next door neighbor in the Hogan
yeah.
family.
Yeah. Just very good as a character actress. But she's super young. She's one of the high school kids in this. She's the biggest person in the movie, and she weighs like 180 pounds. Everybody in 1976 was thin.
Rail thin. Rail thin.
I know it's a movie. I know that they made casting decisions, but when you go back and just open a yearbook from those days and just look at even the faces, you can tell plenty from that. There are not very many big people. And so I see Edie McClurg, who's quite young and not big, not frumpy the way she was when
No,
she was
I thought
50.
she was much thinner. Yeah,
Yeah,
she was
much
much
thinner.
thinner.
Even Edie McClurg is on the thin side, and it was crazy. It was shocking. Um, but yeah, whiny bag of lard. Then a little kid on the tricycle or the training wheels bike. You know, hey, old fart face. It's just this crudeness. Plug it up. Any number of things could have been screamed at Carrie, but Stephen King chooses these incredibly simple, stark, uh, brash phrases, and it's perfect. It's another thing I see on the Twitter writing. I don't think I could handle book talk, so I haven't delved into that. Uh, but people talking about their writing, you know, it's okay. It's beyond okay. It's actually the pinnacle to say somebody is a bag of lard. To call them fart face. It seems unimpressive. Well, guess what? That's the peanut butter and jelly sandwich of insults, where it's you know, Gordon Ramsay's not going to cook it. That's okay. It's actually awesome.
Well,
Um,
and this
yeah.
is the opposite of the millennial Chungus writing that we've complained about that I am really bothered by, which is this like hyper stylized, like perfectly quippy. They say the exact like most ironic and witty thing at all times, and it's so contrived that it's not believable. It takes me, it just I find it exhausting.
It's not real life either.
It's not real life.
Real life is bag of lard. It's fart face.
No one is witty in real life,
No.
almost ever. Ever.
That's
If like one witty thing happens, you remember it for the rest of your
why.
life.
Yeah, that's why there's the whole genre of meme that's like somebody in the shower thinking of the comeback they should have used 2 days ago.
The whole episode of Seinfeld about that, where George with
Yeah,
the jerk story, he's gonna turn around because he
yeah.
finally thought of what to say. It's yeah,
Real life is the fart face
his
level of
fart face.
sophistication.
Yep.
But one of the details in the book that blew me away, and this you could do in a series, you can't do it in the movie. It would have been a problem if this level of granularity was included in the film. Uh, there's a point where Carrie's in her bedroom and she takes a moment to herself. I forget the exact context. But the sentence is she sat down in the small Boston rocker in parentheses, bought and paid for with her own money. Beside the window, closed her eyes and swept them and all the clutter of her conscious thoughts from her mind. This parenthetical detail that she bought and paid for this rocking chair with her own money is incredibly significant to me because it is weird as hell to be a 16-year-old girl who knows how long she's had this rocker. She could have done it when she was 12, but she saved up to get an old style classic rocking chair to put in the window in her bedroom. That's not normal, you know? She wasn't saving up for Barbie's dream house when she was 10. She was saving up for a very classic rocking chair. That tells you a lot about what goes on in this girl's head, what her worldview isn't. The fact that she has like this 80-year-old's vision of what's good in life.
What her mom will allow her to buy,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
importantly, like
I hadn't thought of that.
really importantly, what will the mom tolerate her buying? Because you could imagine maybe there are things that she would like to buy as a 13-year-old girl that she knows that will just get destroyed or thrown away or she'll get punished for bringing in the house, whereas the rocking chair is
Yeah.
okay.
It's okay. And even that specific notation of it being a Boston rocker, that's a type of rocking chair. That's a certain distinct style. As far as rocking chairs go, the Boston rocker is like what you'd think of as a classic no frills rocking chair. It's the most basic. If you picture in your head what an old rocking chair looks like, it's going to be what the Boston rocker is. Because there are a lot of really cool rocking chair designs. There are. This is not one of them. This is the plain sliced white bread wonder bread of rocking chairs, and that's why it's a classic. It defined that. But that too, you can see. Okay, her mom would let her have that kind of rocking chair. So
Mhm.
even as far as rocking chairs go,
Yeah.
it's that tells you so much
It's not a
about her
flamboyant,
life.
it's not one of those floozy
Oh,
rocking chairs
yeah.
like the next door neighbor has.
But when you start to pull on that thread even a little bit, it tells you about Carrie, it tells you about her mom, it tells you about their life, what goes through this girl's head, just because Stephen King said she saved up her money and bought with her own money the most boring rocking chair in the world. Oh, that was just an exceptional detail to me. And you couldn't do that in a film. You could do that and capture it really well if you have, 8 episodes in a series.
Yeah, because it would have to be its own at least one scene, maybe 2. That could be a
Yeah.
subplot in a whole episode is her getting that rocking chair and for all
Yeah.
the various reasons that go into it, yeah, and her being really happy with it, and yeah, it would take time to do that on film.
Yeah.
Whereas you can do it. I mean, that's amazing thing about writing is that you can do that in parentheses with like 7 words, something that
Mhm.
in on the screen would take you a lot of time to make that impactful and
Yeah.
translated well, which is weird.
Yeah. It really would take a few minutes of intricate stuff. Really
It's
do
what's
because
hard about adaptations.
yeah, think how easy it would be to make that scene stupid and boring
Oh, yeah.
in a film. It would be ridiculously easy to to just make that dumb. So I get why some of the majesty is lost. But of all the things in the whole book, that that one line to me was the best. That was the most exemplary of this is how you write really really well,
Mhm.
you know. And he doesn't do that a lot, you know. I've mentioned Updike a million times because I like him so much. He injects hyper detail about mundane objects in the world constantly,
Mhm.
And it works in his books. It adds a richness that's fine. That is not Stephen King. He doesn't go into granular specifics ever. So the one moment that he does, there's more than the one, but not very many. The one moment he does, it packs, 50 pounds of meaning. That
It
was
really
awesome.
stands out. Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, yeah.
Yeah. So the overall the other just minor thing I thought of was just how masterful the whole progression of the plot is, which we really haven't mentioned. I mentioned the period at the beginning, but I just think that the period at the beginning, her getting bullied, there's a little flare of her psychic abilities then, um, but building towards the prom where she ends up being they rig it, the really bad girl,
Mhm.
Chris Hargensen, rigs it so that she ends it up on stage so she can get the blood dumped on her.
Who
But
in the film looks a lot like Sydney Sweeney. That
oh,
girl
really?
looked a lot like Sydney Sweeney to me.
Um, Again, I just don't think that you can come up with a better scenario, a better swing from, uh, her living the life in the hyper sheltered life that she did, to being super nervous about. So, like, one of the things they do in the book that they skipped in the movie is that she gets really nervous that she's being stood up, and that she was
Yeah.
the that Tommy asked her to the prom as as a gag,
A
as
very
another
elaborate gag.
joke.
Yep.
Yeah, this is just another joke that they're, playing on me because he was late to picking her up. So, like, her tension and nerves build, watching that Black Forest cuckoo clock.
Yeah.
Um, those are little things that, yeah, really are missing. I did have a couple of criticisms though, even of
Okay.
the book themselves. And these are things that maybe I didn't pick up on that are explained. And that's why I wanted to ask you. But there are two things that are like kind of big deals. One is, in the book, do they ever explain why the mom isn't just homeschooling her? Why she just doesn't keep Carrie at home? Like, if she's that like insane about her daughter and society, why she lets her go to a public school?
You couldn't really do that until pretty recently.
Okay.
That's so I think that's the simple answer there
Okay.
is, and especially in New England. Like New England,
Margaret
New
had
England,
no choice in the matter, basically.
yeah, I don't see how she could have. I don't see a mechanism that would have been believable. Whereas, yeah, now you just homeschool your kid in that scenario if you don't want them to go to school in almost every state. That is incredibly easy to do. And in the ones that it's not, it's still pretty easy, to do.
So this was something that wasn't a problem because he didn't have to explain a thing that everyone already understood at the time, which is that
Yeah.
Carrie's got to go to school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. So that just wouldn't have been, he's writing this in 74. It's set in 79, which is interesting to me because there's no uh, futuristic benefit to it being in 79.
Yeah, why did he do that? That's interesting.
Yeah. That's intriguing. Uh, uh, but yeah, he's writing it in 74. Um, and it wouldn't have been even, I would say even in the 90s, it would have worked. It would have made the mom that much more uh kind of weird to have insisted on homeschooling then, because she would have had to have jumped through quite a few hoops on approval, and really would have gone to great lengths to keep her out of the public school. That would have worked really well if the book had been written 20-25 years later. In 74, yeah, yeah,
It's
it
just not
just
a
wouldn't have
thing.
come up. No.
Okay. All right. Here's the other thing, which is really important that I find not motivated well enough,
Mhm.
which is Sue Snell being happy to miss her prom and have her boyfriend ask Carrie out and the boyfriend doing it. Like that is kind of the main like turning point of the whole story. And I'm like, did I miss something? Like, is there any given reason why I should believe that this popular girl and her hyper popular boyfriend are going to
Yeah.
willingly miss their senior prom because they feel bad for a girl? No,
You
I
have
don't
to
believe that at all.
you have to believe that this girl is making pretty close to the ultimate sacrifice for her character. Like this is a grand atonement, that she's willing to do that out of guilt. The movie didn't. The movie sucked in general, and it sucked on this because in the book it is a big deal. Like she's asking Tommy for not just a favor. In the film, it's like, oh, will you do this thing for me? And it's like a 20-second scene. And they're far off too. It's not even like it's treated so strangely. Um, in the book, it's a lot more serious where she's asking a really big thing of him. And in doing so, exposing that she's willing to atone on a grand scale for a popular, 17-year-old high school girl. You have to believe that that matters for it to have an impact. Otherwise, it's why would she do this? You have to believe that she's really, um, she feels very guilty, and there's nothing within her power that she can do other than this. She can't make people think Carrie's all right or cool. Apologizing to Carrie wouldn't have any real impact. She has to do this life changing gesture and also sacrifice for herself to do this. The book builds that okay. Enough. It builds it enough. The film does not. But yeah, if you don't think that's a big sacrifice, then that would kind of be, it just wouldn't have that importance.
This is what I thought of later. So yeah, I didn't think I didn't remember being convinced as to why she was doing it in
Yeah.
while reading the book. And then certainly not when watching any of the 48 adaptations I watched.
Mhm.
What I thought about later, which I'm not saying I don't understand why they didn't do this, because then the book has like a very different vibe overall. But to me, it would have made a lot more sense if Sue Snell was also hyper religious and that she felt like a religious need to atone for her sin.
Yeah.
If she was like very devout Catholic or something and was like at church praying for forgiveness from God and being like,
Yeah.
"What can I do, God, to make up for this?" And then, I'm not saying God comes down from the heavens and says, have your boyfriend take Carrie,
Right.
but like that's the only thing I could think of that would make sense for her to like really feel that bad, as if she had some duty, some religious duty
Yeah.
to go to that extent to atone for something that she felt was sinful.
Well, something has to make her completely racked with guilt. And this was super soft in the book. She realizes that she'd done a really bad thing. She'd partaken. She wasn't the ringleader in it, but she still was a part of it. And the whole thing was really bad. She also knows nobody is going to do anything about it at all. So she seems to just absorb the collective guilt they all should feel and channel that into the one big gesture. Uh, how she bottles up that guilt, distills it into an act. The book really didn't do very much with that at all. She just felt really bad and eventually so bad that she did this. That could have been clearer. I don't know. I think there are a lot of ways to wind up feeling that bad, and it could have been a systemic, you know, a good channeling of Catholic guilt or something like that. It could have been totally a religious as well, but the book didn't do a lot of that. The movie did none
Yeah,
of that.
maybe she observes something else that happens with Carrie
Yeah,
as a result, and she feels like really extra bad about Carrie's health or some like Carrie's in danger of killing herself and I don't know, something.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I can see that
It was the
making
one
more
thing that I was
sense.
like, this is really important to the story and super fast tracked.
Right. Yeah, you just have to assume what got her there. And maybe that omission is part of it, is like what drove Sue Snell to make this gesture, and you as a reader guess. Um the book is in Carrie's head for the most part. It's uh, what Carrie knows for the most part. Some when the other characters are doing stuff, you know some of that, whether it's her mom or Sue Snell or Tommy. You get a glimpse, but you don't get the level of understanding that you get with Carrie. And so that might be an omission where it's like, you aren't privileged enough to know the mechanism that got Sue Snell to that point of guilt.
Apparently so. I mean, but
Yeah.
I feel like he did do a good enough job of motivating that Tommy's a good guy. And like
Yeah.
Tommy would listen to Sue and it's really important to her. And he'd be like, you know what? Okay. And he'd be a good sport about it. And he would be really kind to Carrie. Like he's
He
not a
legitimately liked her
yeah, like he's
in
not
the
a
end.
jerk. Like he's like, yeah, I'll take this girl and
Yeah.
whatever. He's not going to be a sourpuss about it at all. He's going to do it in good faith. And I thought that was done fine. Um,
Yeah.
in both. They do it in the movie too, where Carrie likes his poem or vice versa or something like that. They have a moment where it's like, oh, this is not a bad person.
Yeah.
They thought well enough to include that. They just I'm just not buying this angelic Sue Snell.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been a much longer book to flesh out Sue, and less Carrie focused as well.
One scene in the church, man. I'm telling you, just
You
get
think
it
that's
over
well,
with.
that would have
Just
done it cleanly and easily.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, I know we've gone on for a while, but at some point, I want to tell you, I want to go over the most harrowing part of this book to me, because there's a part of the horror book that I thought was truly unsettling.
What?
It's not actually in the book. What edition did you read? Do you have the actual book with you?
Yeah, I don't know what it would
Let
say
me
in the
see
beginning.
this. Is there a foreword to that book?
Yes, it's a forward by Margaret Atwood.
There we go. Perfect. Then we read the same edition,
Okay.
because mine had the Margaret Atwood. Uh, yeah, this must be the newest thing. The Kindle version was the same. Margaret.
I did not read the forward.
Okay,
And I do not read forwards because they spoil books.
they do a
Like
lot. Yeah.
it's insane that I just
Yep.
skipped them. I think I don't remember what book I was reading that spoiled something, and then I swore off reading forwards from now
Yeah.
on.
No, this one I was okay with reading it because I basically knew the plot of this book anyway. It wasn't going to spoil anything of import. Uh, it's like, I was thinking of King just telling you things and then making a whole book out of what he's already told you is going to happen. That's how all the history books work. I don't go into a World War II book wondering who the good guys and bad guys are. I know who's going to die in the end. I know how it turns out, and it's still pretty good. It's still worth reading. Well, this forward, you should go back and read this.
All right, I
It's not
will.
it's not very long. Um, Margaret Atwood did Handmaid's Tale. That's her most famous thing. I I am not a Margaret Atwood fan for 10,000 reasons. I don't like her. I don't like what she writes. Her forward is its introduction to the 50th anniversary edition. That's why she's writing this. So this must be 2024. And it's good. She gives the basic stuff about this being his first published novel. It started as a magazine piece, which a lot of, this is a cool thing about King to me, is how much of his his body of work begins with a single thought. It's almost like the blood on stage scene starting there. But just having people, and he wrote in this same universe in one town for most of it. Just taking a specific thing and then turning something big into it. This happened in Carrie. It was really interesting. There's an Amoco gas station, that is one of the things that gets engulfed and blown up in her rampage. And it's Teddy Duchamp's old Amoco station. Teddy Duchamp is Corey Feldman's character in Stand By Me.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. So there's actually some timeline mismatches that happen because he says in the book, like, Teddy died in 1968 and his son, runs the station, something like that. And then the timeline of the body / Stand By Me makes that, it's off by several years. And it turns out I actually looked to see how the crossover lined up. And he just had this character of, Teddy, who had the gas station, and Carrie. And then later on, kind of retcon developed Teddy Duchamp, who was one of the four boys in the body. But I mean, that's taking one guy and his identity and turning it into a major character in another book. That is so awesome. And so she did a good job pointing out him starting with a small idea and turning it into a big one. He did that with ideas, places, and characters. And that's incredible. Anyway, toward the end of this foreword, after she says all of these things that the world can live without, she includes reactions from friends. And she asks like 3 people she knows. I think 2 are older, like 50-something men. 1 is like a 20-something girl. What they think about Carrie. The first guy she asks, oh, his name is Matthew Gibson. She actually names him. Now in his 60s, but a teenager when Carrie first came out. He read it at the time and became hooked on Stephen King forever. This is an older guy. He's in his 60s. And she has verbatim his reaction, which he says, I'm doing this on my phone, so it might be a bit rambling, but it should give you the overall experience. He touches on some of those things that we said about the elements of Carrie's life that make it a good story. The relatability of the high school social experience, whether you're the victim or the bully, all this stuff, that's good. I could not get over what he said next, which is Stephen King then took us high speed down the track until the story came off the rails, flaming and covered in blood. In such a rewarding way for those of us who had been sympathetic and horrified by Carrie's life and experiences. This next sentence is the one. With some exceptions, all the right people died in the end, and the poor girl unleashed a power none of us could have seen coming. What fun. Now, like 400 people died. Okay? The shitty ones, the people who did bad stuff in the book, they did die. Carrie's mom, Chris Hargison. So a couple of the offenders died. But this guy has rationalized that being justice when hundreds of people in a town are completely wiped out. He doesn't discriminate at all between somebody like Chris Hargison, who makes it her mission to ruin Carrie's life after she feels wronged. She doesn't make a distinction between somebody like Chris and somebody who's in the crowd at the prom, goofily laughing because all of a sudden this girl's covered in blood and another kid got hit in the head with a bucket, which is slapstick funny. All of this is slapstick funny. If you don't really know what's going on, it's humorous and weird. You can imagine yourself giggling at the absurdity of what's just happened on stage. There's no distinction to Matthew Gibson, whoever you are and wherever you are. You're in your 60s. Hopefully you didn't make it to your 70s or won't. Between really, truly bad people. And you know what? If 400 had to die, you know what? All the right people died in the end. What fun. What fun. And I thought, what a horrifying thing it is that people rationalize this book in that sort of way. You said something to me a week ago that's what put it together for me about this in connection with things like school shootings. It's very similar to me in that rationalization where it's like, if you stick it to the list that the very pissed off kid made, his hit list, maybe they were awful to him, and that was horrible. But when there's something like a school shooting, there are all sorts of essentially innocents that end up being victims. I thought it was disgusting that this guy thought that was okay and didn't make the distinction. And that somebody could read this book and not think a girl she'd had enough. She was pushed beyond her limit, but she very obviously completely lost control and disproportionately freaked out. That's what makes it a crazy book.
Well, and they do it better in the book than in the movie because she just goes on that rampage throughout town, and
Yes.
she's blowing up gas stations, and she's letting all the water out of all the fire hydrants so that the firefighters can't put the fires out, and just walking around destroying everything, tearing down electrical lines, and completely innocent people are being electrocuted to death and frying
Yeah.
and on the power lines, and
Yep.
yeah. Yeah.
She destroys the whole town in the end. Even the people she didn't kill and the houses that didn't burn. The town is decimated in spirit and economy and everything else.
Yeah.
Like the shadow that this event cast on the town, it just eliminated this town
Yeah,
from
the
being.
survivors abandon it because it's like, we cannot be here anymore.
It's too much. It's too much to stay. So the the lack of proportionality in both the book and honestly, the movie stuck to the bad guys. She does burn the school with the people in it. That's bad. But once she that's bad. When she leaves the school, she causes an accident, and Chris and Billy Nolan get what they deserve. She goes home to her mom. Her bad mom gets what she deserves. This is closer to what literary and cultural scholar Matthew Gibson thinks is justice. That's closer. The book, however, is like she drops an A bomb on the town.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
having decades to think about this, being able to see it in movie form, all of this, you should get a sense that what Carrie did was a tremendous overreaction, and that's what makes it horrifying. A school shooting is massively disproportional to whatever harm was inflicted on the shooter. Over the years, I'm good for this with you about every 2 years. Something comes up in conversation regarding Hammurabi's code, the eye for an eye. About every 2 years, there's a chance for a 60-second riff on this,
Okay.
and it's always presented as being vengeful. That eye for an eye, you know,
Means if
is
you take my eye out, then I get to take yours
I
out,
get to
and
take
then
yours
we're
out.
even.
And then we're even, and that's justice. The beauty and the importance of Hammurabi's code is in the limitations it sets. You take my eye out, I don't get to murder you back and call it even, because killing you is disproportional compared to the harm that you've done me. What you did was really bad. The law should be able to revisit upon you what you did to me and call it equal. But establishing that that you can't go too far
You can't
is a
kill my
real
whole family. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, you've done a wrong to me. That's terrible. I can't wipe out your bloodline in response.
Yeah. Raise your
Yeah.
property.
Yeah. Well, this guy saying what fun, because she got the bad guys. Who cares about the 400 people who are collateral damage? The town overall, whatever place that has in society, collateral damage. Collateral damage is generally not okay. You had better be wiping out something of serious significance. This is where debates come on dropping the atomic bombs, right? Where so many innocent people died. What if anything did that save, et cetera? This is the debate. Dresden, the bombings that happened there, and this is one. Have you read Slaughterhouse-Five or not?
Yes, but it's been 25 years.
Yeah, that's one that I can't remember as I was thinking about books today. I can't remember if I've read it, and I'm familiar enough with it over the years that what I know could be from reading it or just cultural residual.
Mm.
Um, but Kurt Vonnegut was there when the Dresden bombing happened. That's where the genesis of this story comes from. That was less clear than Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That's why these debates exist, because of the proportionality element. And to justify, which is to me even weirder than celebrating, to justify Carrie's rampage is more twisted to me than anything Stephen King wrote. That is dangerous to me. There's a sickness in you, Matthew Gibson, wherever you are. And sorry, I don't know who he is.
But
I'm
not
going.
only is that his quote, but then Margaret Atwood took the quote and was like, "Yeah, this'll be good." And then whoever was printing that edition also saw it and was like, "Yep, this'll be good. Let's throw that in print forever."
So he's significant.
It's not
Matthew
like
Gib-
it's not a passing remark in an interview or, a podcast or at a cocktail party. It's like, this is what I want to say about this and put it in print.
Yeah. This type is too small for me to read in my advanced age. Matthew Gibson is president, CEO, and a co-founder of what seems to be Singraphil Inc. He manages the firm's forward momentum and product development, intellectual property, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. He's an IP guy. So he's professionally accomplished. Oh, he's on X. with oh, that's the Legal Talk Network, which I guess this podcast was on, where he spoke with his friend Margaret Atwood. Uh, Sharp guy, professional, well educated. This is not a knee jerk, dumb kid reaction. I can see a ninth grader reading Carrie and thinking, like, yeah, the shitty people got what they deserved, and not thinking too deeply about it. I would be okay with that. But somebody in this guy's position, which now I know, I didn't know until this moment, that's horrifying to me. Horrifying that he could justify this, going beyond just like, oh, fun, crazy story, which I'll extend the grace. Yes, he was jotting something on his phone, just like he said. So maybe he himself was on the subway in whatever urban shithole he lives in. Uh, and, you know, didn't think too hard. He was so thrilled to get a text from Margaret and weigh in that he just got goofy. Even so, it disgusted me to read that. And I kept, since I read the foreword first and had not read the book before, I kind of kept reading and waiting for the thing that would justify the horror. And it never came. A girl got made fun of, and that sucks bad. She had a bad life, and that sucks bad. The blood scene is over the top antagonizing of a nice, vulnerable person. That's horrible. Probably shouldn't cost the lives of 400 people. Jen says in the chat that, you know, these are the same people who will say that people who idolize Tyler Durden are red flags. But when Carrie does it, it's fun. She's totally right about that. And I think that this is a very Margaret Atwood leftist mindset to think the collateral damage is okay. The collective punishment is totally okay in that worldview. I can see why they're friends, good friends, texting about Carrie. I agree with Jen that there are often double standards with that kind of thing with a certain set of people. You know, I have a hard time thinking that a sensible, well-balanced adult in the West should come to the conclusion that he did. But yeah, it really seriously affected me to read that guy's reaction, which was before the book and, you know, was bigger than the book to me. I thought, oh my God, what have people thought after reading this book?
Apparently, I'm sure many people thought that. That is really disturbing because that never even would have crossed my mind. It seems so bizarre to come to that conclusion when, yeah, obviously, especially all these people coming out of their houses getting zapped by the power lines. Like, they don't know what
Yeah.
happened. They don't even know. Do they know who Carrie White is? Like, they have nothing to do with any of this.
No.
The police station and the gas stations and all of it.
The band seems in the book to be just like a hired local, two bands,
Oh,
but
yeah, the
hired
band,
local
yeah. What
bands.
does the band have to do with it? Yeah,
You know, you
exactly.
have a cover band in the next town over and you get hired to play a prom. And then,
There are 2 bands.
yeah, they are in extreme detail. Their electrocution, which is very well described. It was awesome as a scene. It was so well described. But yeah, you're playing this prom. This crazy shit happens on stage, and then electricity is like making smoke come out of every pore in your body as you burn to a crisp.
Yeah.
But it's okay because we did get a few of the bad guys.
Yeah. There were like 3 real bad guys. There's, Chris, her boyfriend, and the mom. That's really it. Everybody else
Yeah.
is, not that bad.
A
The
lot of people behave badly, and a lot of people behave badly by omission. The subtext is that anybody could have helped Carrie before Sue Snell's grand gesture. Nobody did. The,
Desjardins tried
the
to.
gym teacher did, yeah.
Yes, and
Yeah.
she got thrown aside right away by Carrie. That she was like the first person that Carrie intentionally, attacked was Desjardins, the gym
Yeah.
teacher.
And that somebody may have said that in one of the responses in the forward that was like, her attempts to help, she kind of unfairly unfairly paid the price for that. Um, yeah, yeah.
But I thought that the point that it was deliberate on Stephen King's part to have Carrie throw Desjardins out of the way to illustrate that she lost her mind. Like,
Yeah.
this was not a rational actor. Like, she was just exploding and everyone was in the way.
Yeah, she's lost her ability to discriminate between friend and foe at that
R
point.
Right. She's just, like, animalistically on a murderous rampage.
That lack of control is terrifying. It's great for the story. She completely loses it rather than doing a real-time accounting of who deserves it. You know, or even if she'd started there and then she just, the ball rolls and it's too strong and then she starts to hurt innocents, whatever. She'd started by, exploding Chris's head.
Right.
And then like eventually it's the band. uh I wonder, yeah, can we schedule next week to get Matthew Gibson on to hear what he thought about Columbine
That
on record?
his quote reminds me of something. I'm not too familiar with this series, but isn't there like an upper class of in the Hunger Games of like very flamboyant rich people
Yeah.
who just
The
take
yeah.
sheer pleasure in like the horrible murder and decay of the poor
Yeah.
people? That's how
Everybody
that quote sounds to me.
everybody who exists in the capital
Okay, the capital.
uses, the tributes who play in the Hunger Games. Two of them come from each of the districts. And this is a big, fantastic Olympics level event for the capital to watch and follow and whatever. But they're completely insulated from any of the misery that people in the districts experience.
Right.
The capital doesn't send two tributes to compete and almost surely die because almost everybody has to given the Hunger Games. uh, but yeah, they are upper class, insulated, have no sense of any of it. uh, I feel like that's Stephen King himself. I think that he told on himself without realizing it, like 50 years in advance. I think that he eventually became, this Matthew Gibson style person based on what he's been saying publicly for the last few years. Uh, I don't think he realized probably what his worldview was when he wrote this book and has since, you know, developed it. Um, he has a quote in the foreword, and it may have come from On Writing, but he describes kids he went to school with in a way. I went to school with kids who wore the same neck dirt for months, kids whose skin festered with sores and rashes, kids with the eerie dried apple doll faces that result from untreated burns, kids who are sent to school with stones in their dinner buckets and nothing but air in their thermoses. Does that seem like a little bit too much to you? Does that seem how plausible does that seem to you?
Pretty I mean, when you said, like, apple shrunken burned faces, that doesn't seem very common.
Now, we went to school with a bunch of rough kids. Some very poor. I remember this is another fall in love with Kevin Lieber line.
Some with pretty dirty necks. I remember
With yeah,
some pretty dirty necks.
he had me at the dirty necks because I'm like, "Oh, I know exactly what that looks like."
Me too.
And the kids who smell perpetually of cow shit because they did all the chores they had to before they got on the bus to go to school.
Correct.
Uh, you told me about a kid in gym class who was like stiff and sore or something. I don't know what you were playing, but said to you, "I'm too old for this shit," and he
Yeah.
was like
At 15.
at 15. And that mental model where you hear that and think, and he was,
And he
you
was.
know what was going on. We knew and still know a lot of people like this. I endeavor to become a perpetual dirty neck, scarred up person. Uh, but we know the reality here, and I see a lot of them. You've been to a couple places with me, like auctions, where you've been to the good one. You've been to the higher end.
Oh, that's the fancy one?
Yeah, it's not the fanciest, but it's pretty good.
They do have hot dogs for sale there. That's pretty fancy.
There are hot dogs everywhere. Yeah. you know, there is one I used to go to, which it's since burned down. And, you never knew what was going to come up because it was people just selling their stuff. And there was a big black garbage bag. They didn't know what they were selling until it came out of the box or the bag either. So it would go on the table, they would reveal it and then announce what it was, and it was up for bidding. It was very funny most of the time. This guy puts a big black garbage bag out and pulls out things. I got a whole bag full of double-barreled slingshots. And they were huge, like granny bras.
Oh.
So they made the best of it. It was like 5 minutes later, they had a box, opened the box, and the guy pulled out a rabbit that was alive. It was an Angora bunny. Those are the ones with a big, puffy, long fur. And they sold that live rabbit. A few minutes later, they had another box and they sold the mate to it. You've got the buck and you've got the doe. It's just like deer. And the same person bought the buck and the doe. But I mean, this is animals are coming out of a box and you didn't see them coming, and they would take a break in the middle to give the auctioneer a moment to not be talking. And they put expired food out on long tables, like 8-foot tables. And there'd be several of those. And it was, these were all like chips and cookies and in boxes of Little Debbie things. And it was $1 a thing. And that was the break, is he announced it out of nowhere. And the people just jump up and rush. I mean, it was when you see a video of like a timed feeder going off for cats, and no matter what the cat is doing, it scrambles to the feeder. It was like that, but with junk food and the sorts of people who buy expired junk food.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was, a sidebar, but we know people Stephen King is saying he knew. he came from like roughly the Portland area. That's why all of his stuff is Maine focused. And I think he grew up in Scarborough. No, you know what? This is even worse. He mostly grew up in a village on the Hudson. I think it's total bullshit. I don't believe a word of it. I don't believe a word of what he described. And it's just like somebody in the Hunger Games in the Capitol trying to describe what people are like in the districts. It's like all the people in Albany who think they understand what my days are, with, you know, having to fix a tractor and a mower, when you really have other things to do. And my knuckles are crushed from putting a too tight belt on a little bit wrongly. Stephen King doesn't have those injuries on his knuckles right now. I don't think he ever did. And I don't think he knew too many people who ever did. I don't think Matthew Gibson knows any of these sorts of people. And that's what makes it really easy for him to say, well, if 400 of them have to go so that academically I can serve justice, then that's, such is the nature of the story, such as are the rules of the Hunger Games.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I thought of the Hunger Games. It's like they're just animals, their lives are meaningless. And it's a hoot. It's really a hoot when they get their comeuppance. And I get to fan myself and adjust my feather boa.
I am, yeah. I just can't get over. I can't get over the foreword to that book. I want to hit the chat really quick. Al, I'm abbreviating it to Al at this point. Doesn't the Capitol send tributes, but they're so well trained and equipped, they're supported by sponsors? Oh, yeah. So I was wondering this too. And Jen says the Capitol does never send tributes, and a couple districts do have preferential status, and they train tributes, and they have an edge, and all of that. Careers, she said, they're called in the book. But yeah, generally, especially in the worse off districts, there's a complete and total disconnect. And I think there's a disconnect between many of the people who read Carrie and what Carrie is. I sent you minutes before we started this, Death Inc., the fantastic artist who we both respect and enjoy, said that, this is one of his favorite books, and he just read it a year ago. And I might go down a Carrie rabbit hole on YouTube to see what people say.
Oh, I'm interested in hearing about that. Let me say one thing that's really important though, because we have been going for a while, and I 3 times meant to bring this up and then forgot and then remembered again. One thing about this story, okay, at least that I took, well, certainly that the movie leaves out, that I think maybe people even reading it don't connect these dots. The mom kind of has a point, okay? The mom kind of has a point with how she treats Carrie, why she's afraid of Carrie, and why she wants to kill Carrie. And this is in the book, and it's really not in the movies. And it's also like not been in any of sort of the general discourse I've heard about Carrie, where I would say the vague sentiment is the mom is extremely evil and horrible, and just like through and through, like toes to scalp bad guy. I read the book and I was like, well, like
You can see why she's
it's
scared.
not really that way. Like, she knows about these powers.
Yeah.
I believe it's her mother or her grandmother
Grandmother. Yeah. Yeah.
had these psychic powers.
Yep.
And she didn't. It's like skipped a generation or whatever it was. But she knew about these powers, which yeah, obviously seem demonic when you're able to destroy a whole town at your
Yeah.
whim.
Hmm.
So the mom being like, my daughter is cursed and I
Yes.
need to do everything in my power to prevent her from going to the dark side, from
Right.
becoming Darth Vader.
Right.
So here's how I'm going to do that
Hmm.
is explained in the book. And does anyone agree with her choices? No. But
Right.
this isn't just some one-dimensional cardboard cutout. Oh, she's a bad guy because she likes Jesus too much, and isn't that crazy? It's like,
Yeah.
well,
There's
no,
more to it.
actually there's way more to it. It's explained like pretty clearly, and this
Yeah.
is an element to the story that I think is like pretty ignored.
Yeah. That's completely beyond fair. That's a huge part. And as much grief as The Boys gets, and it deserves almost all of it. This is the Boys series on Amazon, and I suppose the comics as well. But this question, the big question that they deal with in the series is like, how does society deal with the soups, the people who have these superpowers, and you have the two camps where it's cultivate and maybe have some guidelines, and then you have the because of the capacity for this to go wrong, we need to eliminate them all completely.
That's X-Men. That's the whole story of X-Men.
That's X-Men, right? Uh, the book treats this like at the end where the hearings are happening because people are trying to figure out, are there going to be more Carries with telekinetic powers? If so, do we identify it? That's something in the book too, is like, the scientists are getting closer to identifying the gene and how it works. If you do identify it, what happens then? Do you test for that gene in utero and like force abort every baby is that a just response? I mean, this is a good debate, right? It's a big issue. But when you take that to the exact situation where the mom recognizes what's going on, she knows the level of power, and to her, I mean, any day of her life, of Carrie's life, the mom could have, tried to kill her, and she doesn't. At the same time, she thinks that the power is too much and shouldn't exist. So she's clearly struggling with that. Uh, but when you put that together, what she knows, you're right. What's the mom supposed to do in that scenario? Yeah, that's not an easy spot to be in. Parents actually deal with this on a real level, where there are parents who recognize, uh, beyond sociopathy in children and don't know what to do. It can be really recognizable in kids at like 4 to 5 because they start interacting with other kids in the world, and like you see that something isn't right about how they do that.
Small animals.
Small animals, yeah, yeah. They find, witness troubling things, whatever. They know that there's a serious problem that may very well manifest in a tragic way later on, and they don't like draw a bath for the child immediately and dunk their heads. They
Yeah, I mean, is this Rob Reiner's situation?
honestly,
Maybe,
yeah,
maybe. It seems like it. It certainly
yeah.
seems like it.
It's not easy. And Rob Reiner and his wife went to great lengths to deal with a troubled kid. and in the end, they couldn't fix him. What do you do when you recognize not only trouble but worse, the murkiness of not knowing whether it's going to go badly?
Mm.
Carrie could go her whole life and do goofy things like make her rocking chair rock with nobody sitting in it. She could shut a window from across the room just like the grandmother did, you know, or she can blow up a town, and you don't know which end of that spectrum the kid's going to fall. That's terrifying as a parent. What do you do?
Yeah, I'm not sympathizing with the mom. I want to make that clear. Like her actions pushed Carrie towards nuking the
Yeah,
town. Obviously, that's the point of the book. I'm
you
just
can
saying
sympathize with the problem the mom had, though.
it makes the character and the scenario so much more compelling than I
Yeah.
think people give it credit for. Like that is a really deep and interesting part of this story that I think gets glossed over.
What
It
I'm
is not
hearing,
mentioned in any of the adaptations.
yeah, it wasn't in the foreword.
They're like,
Uh,
it doesn't matter. Like, okay, actually, it matters a lot.
the takeaway is that Kevin Lieber thinks the hero of Carrie is the abusive mother. That's that's what the world needs to know. Uh,
Yeah, if she just prayed harder in that closet, this wouldn't have happened.
recognizing the difficulty of the scenario the mom was placed in is critical. And you're right. Yeah, that deserves a great deal. Yeah, like Jen says in the chat, as she said it scrolling up a little bit, that horror stories are tragedies. They're just slasher films if they're not. It's just gore and it's stupid, right?
Right.
But a
Right.
real troubling, unsettling horror story, it has to take the important elements of a tragedy, and this certainly does.
Yeah. I mean, this was the criticism of The Shining, by the way.
Hmm.
Stephen King's criticism of the Kubrick adaptation. He did strip away basically all of the familial and interpersonal tragedy that is in the book. That is
Oh.
what the book is. And in the movie, it's just like, isn't this hotel scary? That's which
Yeah, I've only seen the movie, which it is.
I love the movie.
It's a
I'm not
great movie.
saying
Yeah.
that the movie is bad. It's amazing and one of the best horror movies absolutely ever created. But it is, isn't this hotel scary and nothing else?
Right.
Whereas the book has a lot of deep
Mm.
interpersonal story about the father and battling with alcoholism and trying to start their life over at this hotel and like
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
is built it's crafted, the story is crafted masterfully in the book, and in the movie it's just kind of like these twins are weird.
I've only seen the chickening. Are you familiar with it?
No, what is that?
You know the Smearballs?
Oh,
Smearballs
that's
video of the
right.
chickening?
Oh, yeah. Smearballs did, something for Smiling Friends. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yes, in one of the final Smiling Friends episodes is a whole thing, like a 3D animation thing that was directed by none other than Smearballs.
Does it use his real
Nick
name or does it say?
Denboer.
Oh, that was my question: is whether it was Smearballs or Nick Denbauer.
I don't remember what it says in the credits. I don't
Yeah.
remember. But
Well,
yeah, he worked on I thought that was the greatest collaboration ever.
that's an incredible crossover
Mhm.
of Lieber lore.
It is, yeah.
It's,
It's like
but yeah, Google the chickening. He just made the just craziest like 2 minute loosely shining based thing. That's just at the time too. The level of artistry in making that video was absolutely insane. You could
yeah,
do it now with an AI thing in
right.
10 minutes. At the time, there was nothing like it.
Yeah,
Nothing.
yeah, it's true. All right, anything else on Carrie? Are we done?
No, no, I'm
I think we're done.
we're done, I, I'll hold all of my further thoughts for when we do get Matthew Gibson on next week to discuss the justice of school shootings, sponsored
Yeah.
by his company.
Yeah, Mr. Gibson, which is your favorite school shooting? What let's do a
Yeah.
tier list. Let's
Yeah,
rank
that's what it
them.
will be. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Which ones deserve to be S tier
and
in
why?
your view
Yeah,
of teen justice?
right. Based upon the amount of bullying, the amount of, those who deserved it, how much they deserved it. Yeah, let us know.
How many additional hundreds of people have to die before it becomes a mistake?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's the heap paradox of mass
Yeah, yeah,
murder.
yeah.
Exactly.
Ugh.
God. Okay. All right. That's it. Thanks to our patrons for supporting the show. If you want to become a patron, go do that on Patreon. We'll be back next week. Until then, we'll see you, Space Cowboys.